à-bas-le-ciel.
Hey, I'm speaking to the enigmatic and brilliant dumb vegan. What's up, man? Some of the websites I used are blocked in China, and some are not. So I'm currently streaming to YouNow, which is a miracle of modern science that I can do that from China, and I'm talking to you via Skype. So that's great. And I'm recording audio only, so great. So we can use this as a podcast, whatever you want to do. So let's start with the really edgy questions. Maybe you got questions for me. You can hit me with whatever, man. I'm really not shy. So, my deep and incisive first question for you is, how long have you been vegan?
2.5 years.
Wow, all right, not bad. And what role did Freely's difficult-to-define sex appeal have in your conversion to veganism or your decision to start a YouTube channel, or both?
Not 0%. I will say that.
2.5 years ago, I asked that question probably because I think 2.5 years ago I would have said Freely was just at about her peak of kind of unquestioned influence, on YouTube, and she got covered in the newspapers and so on. I would say 2.5 years ago she was pretty much at the pinnacle of her influence. So obviously it could be complete coincidence, but I just thought I'd ask because you really come up in the time when her shadow was the longest.
Sure. Yeah, it's a fair question, and it's not something that I would steer away from or try to deny. I mean, the influence of Freely, Durian Rider, but hey, just as much the influence of Forks Over Knives and, the girl in college that took me to a place and ordered tofu, and I didn't know what the hell she was talking about and didn't think I could ever do it because I was allergic to soy, and, and then those, it all paints a big picture. I can't say it was one thing or other, but I certainly don't deny somebody like Freely's influence on myself. I was your random person lurking around on YouTube and finding all sorts of social media personalities talking about such things. So, sure. And 2.5 years ago, I mean, she was, I don't know, I think, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like that's kind of when she started doing the kind of video call-outs where she would throw in the factory farm footage type of stuff. Is that wrong? Was that not 2.5 years ago? That might have been less than that. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. Well, look. I mean, there are a lot of things interesting in what you just said. One that leaps out at me though is so you're allergic to soy. So you actually a soy-free vegan? Wow.
Well, here's the thing. I've been allergic to legumes since I was a young whippersnapper, and I've actually gotten over some of them. Specifically, probably trying out more stuff just out of curiosity. Once going vegan. So I can actually eat soy now. It's weird, man. Like I don't know exactly what the deal is, and there's they're in the legume families, so I've been always allergic to peanuts.
Right. And
I can eat a little bit of some of that stuff now, and then there's some that I just can't even have a single bite of. I can't have a single bite of a lentil or green peas, or I'll just I have a really bad allergic reaction. But I've actually kind of curbed it with soy, and I don't know why that is. And I didn't think I could have black beans or refried beans, or not necessarily refried. I mean, lard free refried beans, of course, but I didn't think I could have those at all, and it's weird. I can eat those now all the time. So I maybe never was allergic to some of these types of things that I lumped in with all legumes. I don't know. I was always kind of safe.
Well, that's really interesting to me. The only reason I know about that allergy was that once when I was living in Laos, I met a really cute, attractive woman. And I wouldn't even say we dated, but we went out to restaurants a couple times. And yet it's not dating, I assure you. But I was interested in her. She was there doing research and humanitarian work too, so we had some obvious interest in common. But I remember one of the first things she said to me was she could never be vegan because she had the most extreme form of that allergy. Probably it's the same medical condition you have, but she had a more extreme more extreme case of it. But for her, if she ate any legumes whatsoever, her heart would stop beating, and she needed to have I'm sorry, I forget the chemical. She needed to have something directly injected into her heart to restart the heart beating. So it was absolutely the most extreme form. But I remember saying to her right off the bat, I was like, "You're cute, but I'm not going to stop eating beans."
It's serious stuff, man. I mean, there's all sorts of people, all sorts of allergies that you would never think of, and then you hear about it, and then they're like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. It'll kill me if I don't take a shot with a epinephrine or whatever.
Right, right. So in terms of legumes, sorry to stand up for just 1 second. Can you eat peas? Can you eat some of the sources of protein that are not true beans? Because a pea technically is not a bean, but I don't know how it falls into that allergy.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I can't have those. So that could
Wow.
precisely be, what it is. It's maybe it's not the beans that like I say. I mean, I think I maybe never was allergic to soy, but it was, potentially in like something, and I associated it with because maybe there was also peas in whatever I thought, and then I pinpointed it as, oh, it must be the soy, but I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know. Sorry, I know this is kind of derailing the conversation, but I think it is probably interesting to people, and it's interesting to me. I feel like I couldn't survive without beans. So it's maybe this is a dumb question to kick off my interview with Dumb Vegan, but what do you do for protein?
I mean, well, I do. I mean, now, hey, I eat black beans and things like that now.
Okay.
So,
Okay, wow.
like I say, I wasn't. There's a really good chance I was actually never allergic to certain kinds of beans,
Okay.
like black beans, or red beans, or white beans, or whatever.
Right. Right.
But now, once I figured out that I wasn't allergic to them, I do now eat them all the time.
Okay. Well, so I just mentioned another bizarre reason why I know a bit about this is that I've studied ancient languages also. And one of the things I was trying to figure out, because in translating ancient languages, even if your interest is philosophy or politics, historically, before the modern era, before the discovery of North America by Columbus, the discovery of Haiti by Columbus, whatever you want to say, when you have words that mean bean, I was wondering, what does this actually mean? We talk about beans in ancient Greece or ancient India or ancient China. I was looking at that stuff, and what I figured out is, today we have this one word in English, bean. But actually, in terms of evolutionary history and even the history of human culture and civilization, they have very different histories. One thing that we call a bean really comes from Mexico and reflects a whole ancient history of human cultivation in Mexico. And another, like soybeans are genuinely part of the history of China for more than 30,000 years. So they're we just have one word. We just call beans. But so I'm not surprised when you say it turns out you can eat black beans, but apparently you can't eat many other kinds of legumes, yeah? So that's good news to you, because black beans are a fabulous protein source.
Right. I mean, I get what you're saying there. We lump a lot of things together, in modern culture as that there are, in similar families and things, but there's no reason to necessarily lump them in as closely as we do together. They're kind of, lots of things are really their own thing, and we do kind of lump them together when it's not necessarily appropriate, but
yep.
Then you kind of learn, there's, different beans have different levels of carbohydrate versus protein content. Like soybeans are much higher protein than a black bean.
Right.
But they are pretty similar still. I see why, a soybean is called a soybean, or.
Right. So I want to push you on your earlier admission. There was some good-looking girl in college who took you to a restaurant and ate tofu in front of you. And this was a turning point. Take me back to that moment. This is when you first heard the concept of veganism, or concept of vegetarianism. Maybe what happened?
Well, no. I guess I kind of biffed that a little bit, but I think that it's a good example of like somebody that was vegan. I didn't meet too many vegans. Probably the first time I ever heard the concept of veganism was on The Simpsons, when Lisa was considering going vegetarian, or did.
Wow.
But then, like, at the end of the episode, she's in the Quickie Mart and she's eating that. She's get ready to fuck off vegetarianism, because she just came from the barbecue where Homer was, doing his barbecue thing, and she's getting ready to eat a hot dog, and then she takes a bite, and then Apu is like, "Oh, you're enjoying my tofu hot dogs," and then she's like, "Tofu," and then anyway, she finds out that Apu, he doesn't say vegan, but he says he doesn't eat anything that comes from an animal. So that was probably technically my first exposure to the idea of veganism.
Wow.
But it didn't stick when I was 7 years old. I didn't start looking into it then or anything.
Yeah.
So no, I was using that example because I think she was one of the only vegans that I had really met in my life. That I talked to and actually talked about it anyway.
Right.
And I mean, I thought I was like, okay, well, that's cool. And then I remember asking her, it was kind of funny. I was like, well, I'm allergic to, soy. Like, we went into that conversation there, but like, I at least thought that I was, highly allergic to soy. And I was like, so, I don't, and all legumes. I was like, so I don't know if I could get the protein. And she would kind of was like, she was kind of quiet. And she was like, yeah, I guess so. But like, I mean, I kind of wonder if she was like, well, there's other ways to, get protein if you wanted to do it.
Right.
But she didn't say that. So,
that's cool. With the progress of your condition, have you been working with a doctor to figure that stuff out, or has it just been trial and error for you, figuring out what you can and can't eat? It sounds like it's been, you've been.
Yeah, I mean, I went to an allergist once when I was 12, but like they said I was allergic to, like, the results that they sent me, like they said I was allergic to grass, and like they didn't even, I can't, it was like, it seemed really faulty. I'm like, I didn't really trust the diagnosis. I mean,
right.
I don't know. It didn't. It wasn't add anything because I've never had any problem with grass. Or I think they said I was allergic to dogs too, or something. And I was like, well, I'm not. So, what can you do?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I got used to it really quick when I was young, and I just figured out what I could have and what I couldn't have, and just rolled with it. And it's never been, if I eat something that I can't have, I just take a Benadryl, and I'm pretty good to go in 20 minutes.
Yeah. So just say about myself, but by contrast, I mean, I did not learn about veganism from The Simpsons, but it's funny for me growing up. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and like my childhood was so much dominated by left-wing ideology, and like left-wing politics. There's all this emphasis on changing the world through helping the poor, the workers, the fact, these kind of left-wing labor unions. That's the idea of progress. And whenever the issues of animal rights or veganism came up, anything like that, vegetarianism, veganism, that was always lumped into one category with kind of superstition and Hinduism. And to be fair, it's not completely without reason. But in my childhood, it wasn't that I hadn't heard of vegetarianism or veganism, but there was this sense that was part of the feudal, medieval, backwards religious world. Whereas the future was going to be, people putting on spacesuits and, giant robots fighting each other in World War III and that kind of thing. So it was a sense, for me, the transition in a lot of ways was switching from thinking about vegetarianism as part of the past to being an important part of the present and the future. But I've got to say, in a sense, I always knew the concept, and it was always there to compete with the other big ideas, I'd say. That's my word.